All right, everyone. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been doing logic puzzles nonstop for about 48 hours.
Yeah, let's catch you up with where we're at here. Last episode ended with me half asleep because of reasons. But after last episode, we've both gone back and each gone over like the rules again, the purple truths, and started trying to tease out what we can and find some ways to start picking at this logic puzzle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've both made progress in different ways. I think Vivian has come to a much cleaner conclusion than I got to, but we're gonna talk about what we the stuff that we sussed out.
Yeah.
I guess to the background of techno music, because why not?
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to reread the scenario with an eye towards testing a couple of theories.
Yep.
So, I think the first big revelation that really made this, let's see, show me the rules. I think the biggest revelation that started making this doable for us, like the way to kind of like start working at it, was,
A culprit must not die?
a culprit must not die. This is interesting. This one rule is interesting because we get this rule in conjunction with it is characters who are not culprits speak only the truth. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Those two together create some very interesting scenarios because we started if you start with one pretty reasonable assumption, which is that someone we assume is dead has to be alive, at least one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe has to be true in order for the last Twilight to work, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So if you assume that at least one person who is dead must be alive, you can use that in conjunction with those two rules to start creating chains of dependency of culprits. And the way we do that is because people will say in purple that so-and-so is dead. However, if that character that they say in purple is dead, the person who said that in purple is lying and is therefore also a culprit, and therefore also must murder someone.
And must not be dead themselves.
And must not be dead themselves. So then anyone who said that that person was dead must also now be a culprit, and so on. You see how you can spin this out.
Mm-hmm.
So the first step we took was we just kind of went through each of the Twilights and created like the naive dependencies on that. Like, okay, if someone from this Twilight is alive, then who must be lying, right? Who would that make a culprit? We did that for all the Twilights, and going through a couple of different scenarios depending on because like depends on who lives in like the first Twilight, like if it's a particular adult versus like someone like Genji.
Mm-hmm.
After we had all those scenarios out, we then started chaining stuff together and creating like, okay, so what's the logic here? If X is we know that if, this person lives over here, that means this person is a culprit. But if that person's a culprit, necessarily this person confirming their death is also a culprit. And doing that, we were able to get we were able to start to see like the larger picture of like what the conspiracies would have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Of like who we're not going to enumerate everything here because it's honestly a little bit tedious. But we were able to go through all the Twilights like that and going back to the purple decks and be like, okay, this. There were a couple that were hinky. Like George makes a statement at one point like I was forced to acknowledge, right? However, stuff like that we figured was covered under stuff like
it is possible. Oh, sorry.
Where is it?
Characters who are not culprits may not cooperate with culprit.
Right. So even if he's forced to acknowledge, which is kind of weaselly, right? That still can be construed as cooperating with the culprit, and therefore makes him a culprit anyway. So
the other.
Go ahead.
The other weaselly one for me is a culprit is defined as one who murders, which doesn't specify murders someone here on Rokkenjima. And if it allows for someone to have murdered someone previously or at some point in the future, then there are slightly different solutions available.
Now it's tough because this game is very intentional with its wording.
Yep.
Right? The translation is very good about being very specific and intentional with its wording. I think in that case, we can assume that that's outside the scope of the game.
Yep.
But it is important. Like, there have been a couple of times where we've caught up on, like, the specifics of rules like that. And, like, all right, does this actually mean what we think it means? You know, that kind of thing. We're also able to, like, make a couple of broader scope deductions based on some of the stuff we're given. For example, one of the things we were worried about earlier on was, like, how Shannon and Cannon fit into this game. And it turns out after looking at stuff, Cannon just doesn't factor into the game at all, right? Cannon dies, and his is the only death that is given in red.
Mm-hmm.
And since he's dead, he can't be a culprit. Cannon makes one statement in purple that's kind of like, it's not unimportant, but it's not super important. So he can't have murdered anyone because he's dead, and no one murdered him because he was killed off by red. So he just doesn't factor in at all to this game. So we put him to a side and just, Shannon, which helps out a lot. Like that was the biggest thing. A couple of other things that I was able to suss out. We'd get read at one point that the perpetrator of the first Twilight kills 6 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now this creates, and since every culprit has to kill at least one person, that creates a system of equations we can use to find out, like, what the maximum number of culprit is. And that maximum, just taking that together naively, you'd think it'd be 8, right? Because we know there are 3 guaranteed survivors. And the number of people killed would be 5 plus X, where X is the number of culprits. However, all the culprits also themselves have to be survivors. So when you factor that in, the maximum number of culprits is 5. With 5 culprits, there can be 10, at most 11 deaths, leaving 6, at least 5 survivors. And that is the maximal number of culprits. If you have 6 culprits, there aren't enough bodies. There aren't enough, dead people for them to kill. And still have survivors. There's also some interesting stuff in there. I think we can make a reasonable assumption that if someone's death was faked, that they are themselves a culprit. Because Occam's razor, if you have someone faking someone else's death, what's the point if it's not to free them up to be a culprit themselves, right? And using that, we can determine stuff like, in the case of 5 people, there can be at most 3 people who have faked their deaths. But in the case of 4, there can be up to 4 people faking their deaths, and that is the maximum. There can be at most 4 people faking their deaths. And that's because we have 3 people whose deaths are who never die.
Could there even be in the case of 4, because someone would need to fake it?
Yeah, as long as you're right, because then the person faking their deaths would have to be themselves a culprit. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So the actual maximum is 3. I hadn't factored that into my analysis.
And that's 3 assuming that one of the deaths is only confirmed by one person.
Yes. So the maximum number of fake deaths we can have is 3. Anything that goes over 3... And this is helpful because any chain of dependencies we find that has more than 5... that necessitates more than 5 culprits or necessitates more than 3 faked deaths, on its face cannot be true. We don't even need to check it. That just cannot happen. Yeah, that was the extent of the stuff that I had reasoned out. You attacked it from a different angle. Rather than looking at the bigger scope stuff, you started working on dependencies immediately, and I think that actually wound up coming out in your favor.
Yeah, what I tackled it was just making a list of all the people on the island and figuring for each person who, if anybody, would absolutely have to be a culprit also if they were. So, for example, if Maria were a culprit, George would also have to be, because George says Maria couldn't kill anybody. And if Maria were a culprit, she would have killed someone, so George also would have to be and would have to have killed someone. And we can get surprisingly far by doing chains of reasoning like this. For example, we know that let's see. To kind of pivot and tackle from a different angle, we know we need a way into the second Twilight room, right? And
Yes.
we have a couple ways we can do that. We can have a servant go in with a master key and
Yep.
lock up after. Or we could have someone go in and stay in the room. We don't get anything saying that there isn't someone still hiding in the room.
Yep, no culprit joined the group as they left, and and the important thing being that if someone, if someone goes in there, that they're basically in there for the rest of the game board. They can't do anything else because they get sealed in.
Yep.
By this red text here.
And what we know about this, we know then that either someone who dies in the early Twilights would have to be the person who does this, so they could still be in the room, because we don't have anyone missing from the later Twilights. We see them all.
Right.
Or it would have to be a servant.
I suppose before we elaborate on that, we should also mention like how it's possible for someone without a master key to get in.
By knocking and asking.
Exactly. They don't like Kraus and Natsuhi were in there. All they had to do was knock and be like, "Hey, what's up?" And then their accomplice would lock themselves in, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so they don't need, if they're not a servant, they don't need to use the master key to get in there.
That's true.
Sorry, I didn't mean to, I just wanted to make sure we hit that before we.
So this gives us a lot, because Shannon guarantees that all the servants had alibis and were all together. So if any servant did, Shannon also did.
Yep.
Shannon's death is guaranteed by Nanjo and George. So Nanjo and George would both have to be culprits. Nanjo's death is guaranteed by Jessica and George, so Jessica would also have to be a culprit. And it turns out through a complicated chain that George would also imply Maria has to be a culprit, because Maria makes a statement that he could only kill a kid, not an adult. So either he killed Shannon...
And that winds up being too many people. Because if it's any servant besides Shannon, then that's 6 culprit.
Yeah, so I hadn't quite got to that point. But either he kills Shannon, in which case Jessica said he couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Or he kills Jessica, in which case Maria and Battler were lying. Or he kills someone who's not a kid, in which case Maria's lying. Jessica's death is later guaranteed by Maria as well. And George. So at minimum, any servant being involved would guarantee Shannon, Nanjo, George, Jessica, and Maria was. So only if it is Shannon could it work. So all the servants must be innocent.
Right, exactly. Or of that, yes.
Of that particular Twilight.
Yes.
They could do a different one if we could work them in, but it turns out to be pretty difficult.
Yeah. And so that really narrows down the field.
We also get that either Battler or George must be a culprit.
Yep.
Because Battler says Nanjo couldn't have left the guest house, and George says he couldn't have been killed in the guest house, and he has been killed, which Battler also guarantees.
Oh, yeah.
So, one way or another, one of Battler or George has to be a culprit, no matter the theory we go with.
Well, not necessarily.
How not?
Wait, no. You were. There's just more steps to it, because that was the 7th Twilight, right?
Yeah, I didn't think there were any more steps. It seems pretty.
Yeah, I mean it's more than just those two alone, but yeah, because it's not. They're the two truths aren't mutually exclusive. Like they don't contradict each other. Right? Am I misunderstanding? Either way, if you work all the scenarios for episode for the 7th Twilight, one of George or Battler must be a culprit, and also possibly Jessica.
So, where I ended off, Battler and Kyrie and Rudolph theory seemed most plausible.
Yep. And how did you arrive at that?
Just because Battler was the one who was least had the least implications.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that Battler being a culprit means basically nothing. Him being a culprit doesn't guarantee anyone is.
Mm-hmm.
And having Kyrie and Rudolph free would allow all of the Twilights to be pretty easily solved if, say, Kyrie kills 4 people first night, Battler helps Kyrie and Rudolph fake their deaths. They get up and leave. Rudolph goes and hides in the guest house. Kyrie goes and does the second Twilight and hides in that room and remains there. Battler sneaks out and kills Shannon, allures Shannon out and kills her. And then we have Rudolph hiding in the guest house, able to do the rest of the murders without violating the things that everyone else is saying. Oh, the cousins and Nanjo couldn't have done it. Oh, us 3 couldn't have done it.
We assume. We haven't checked that yet against all of the white text and stuff yet. Because the white text, yeah. So what we're going to do is be checking that theory against that now. However, I thought you also, correct me if I'm wrong here, I thought you came to, that was one of the options you came to by, like, you had managed to get it down to, like, it must be one of these theories.
Yeah, so I have 2 other variants that I think work logically that are less elegant, but I didn't find any contradictions in them. And it was Shannon and George and Jessica and Maria and Nanjo theory. That gives us Shannon to free up to do the second Twilight, and then everybody else has to coordinate in some weird ways to get folks killed at the right times, but there ends up being exactly enough bodies to make it work.
Yep.
And make nobody be lying. Or Ava or Hideyoshi or Rosa and Jessica and George and Maria. If any one of those parents is free, they could do 4 killings first Twilight, 2 killings second, and again have the kids cooperate in some weird way to get the rest of the bodies. This time with some wiggle room. Those 2 don't make any sense to me, but I found no contradictions, and I could not find any other logical path than those.
Now, I personally am really hoping that it is Battler Kyrie Rudolph theory.
Yeah.
Because if it is, that's just really delightfully petty of Bern to just be like, yeah, I made you do it. What of it? So what we're going to do now that we have all that done, we're going to go back to the very beginning of the scenario. And we're going to spin it. We're going to take these theories in mind, right? Mm-hmm. Ava, so Battler Kyrie, like, Battler family theory, what are we going to call Shannon, George, Jessica, Maria, Nanjo theory?
The kids and Shannon, the kids and Nanjo, I guess.
Kids and Nanjo. Yep, kids and Nanjo theory. And then there's Ava Hideyoshi, one of Ava Hideyoshi and Rosa, and Jessica and George and Maria theory.
I think that theory may also work now that I'm looking at it again. If Natsuhi or Kraus is the parent in question.
Really?
Yeah, because it could be something like Natsuhi kills the first 6 and then lets in Jessica to kill her dad and then lets her back out but fakes her own death, and then George and Maria do the rest of the killings.
Oh my.
That I think would work. I think. It'd be fucking weird.
Now, there is one other thing. Like, the game will give us hints, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, we will read through all those for the content because, content. But we want, in the spirit of having this duel between Ryukishi and us, we want to make sure that we've come up with our own solution.
Yeah.
Before we start that. So, why don't we start from the beginning? Let's start with, and just to keep things straight, so we're not trying to, wrangle a whole bunch of different things at once. Let's read it from the top, and let's start with the most elegant theory, Battler Kyrie Rudolph theory.
Mm-hmm.
Let's spin out how this would have to happen in order to work with the red text and before we do that, let's refresh ourselves on the rules here, right? What this means is that Battler, Rudolph, and Kyrie all have to murder someone.
Yep.
They are allowed to lie in purple.
Yep. They're also allowed to tell the truth if they so choose.
They also are allowed to tell the truth. That means everyone who is not part of Battler's family is telling the truth when they're speaking in purple.
Yep.
And no one else is allowed to cooperate with them. So none of our explanations can involve other characters helping them out.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And the other big stipulation is that we have to also account for how their deaths are faked.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's try this. Start from the top. Finally, no more techno. God, that's
no
so
more
stressful
techno.
to do, like, reasoning to techno.
It gets me fired up. I always listen to techno when I'm doing like programming shit. So,
Well, yeah, but
electronic
that's-
music makes me all logical and shit.
Oh, okay. All right, well. All right. The tragedy of the first twilight was discovered at 6 a.m. in the morning on the following day. Goda, who had woken up to get breakfast ready, went to check on the adult siblings who had remained in the dining hall since the previous night because of the family conference.
So Goda indeed did go, for sure. We now know that none of what's in white is a lie.
What?
We know that what's in white is not a lie. So
Right,
we can
right.
pin down a lot of people's locations for sure now that
Yep.
were just vague to us before because we were only looking at the purple truths while we were working this out.
Tell us about when you discovered the crime.
Oh, the dining hall was locked up.
Now, this is fine for us, right? Because if Kyrie and Rudolph are faking their deaths, they can just lock the door after themselves on the
Mhm.
inside, right?
Of course, there's a lock on the doors to the dining hall, but they usually remain unlocked. I knocked, but there was no answer.
Now, something interesting about that. Can we scroll back up to it?
Yes.
Oh, we can't see it in retrospect. Notably, the dining hall was locked up as the only part in purple. So the rest could be a lie.
No.
Why not?
Rules. Because the rule, it's only the Oh, we had this argument, didn't we? Why don't we go back and just talk about that real quick first? Because we were debating whether or not the
We probably won't be able to jump back.
Oh,
but I
also
can
no,
pull up
because only culprits can lie.
in purple.
No, only culprits can lie. It doesn't say only culprits can lie in purple. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
We were going.
I'm really not sure of
You know
that.
what? Let's load that up. I'm stopping this already because we need to talk about that inconsistency in the purple, or not in the purple, in the rules. So, because this also factors into like how much we can derive from things, and this could be the case that this isn't like. It's possible for a culprit to lie. Characters who are not culprits only speak the truth.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and outside of spoken statements, there are no lies in the narration.
Why does it say then purple statements are as absolute as red truths? It seems like any spoken statement is as absolute as a red truth then, if that's really true. So,
I guess to differentiate them from spoken statements that aren't purple from characters who are culprits. I don't know. I don't know why it's done that way, but that is how the rules are laid out.
yeah, if it is that interpretation, then purple doesn't matter at all, ever.
Because you're saying there's no difference between a spoken statement from a culprit, and I guess maybe it's a way of just kind of like honing stuff in so that we don't have just the entirety of the spoken dialogue to shuffle through. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I guess so.
That is a little strange. Characters who only speak the truth. That's what the rules say.
Yeah.
So it really does feel like he has to, like what he says has to be the truth there. All right, let's.
Not only does he feel like it says they may only speak the truth.
Yep.
Okay.
So the dining hall was locked up. Of course, there is a lock on the doors to the dining hall. They usually remain unlocked. And yeah, okay.
That's when I arrived. I recommended that he try unlocking the door just in case. Yep, that's fine.
When I unlocked the door with the master key, a terrifying sight awaited me inside.
Eva-sama, Hideyoshi-sama, Rudolph-sama, Kirie-sama, Rosa-sama, and Genji-san. 6 people in all were lying there, covered in blood. Yep. That is truthful. Great. Wait, so why never mind. We don't need to worry about any of the narrative stuff.
Ooh. Do we only get the number of people lying there in one spoken statement?
Yeah.
I didn't factor that in.
How would that change things?
If Kumasawa is lying, there may be someone who is just alive.
Vibing there?
Not even. There were only 4 people laying there covered in blood or something, and there's 2 people who were alive and hanging out and not part of the narration from this point onward.
Okay. So here's the thing. I don't think that can work. Because Kumasawa if Kumasawa's a culprit, that would necessitate Nanjo, Jessica, George, and Maria are also culprits. That's already 5 people. However, if she's lying to cover up for the deaths of one of the people in the dining hall there, that's a 6th culprit, and that's too many.
Is she lying to cover up a death? And help someone be a culprit? I don't know if that...
Yeah.
I don't know if that follows. It would follow
because
if someone had died and she said that they...
If she's lying about the people that were lying there and there, then she's a culprit.
Then she is.
Yep, and so are Nanjo, Jessica, George, and Maria.
Does that follow?
Well, then she's aiding the culprit who she is conveniently not.
She is the culprit, yeah, but the person who is not dead. Does that follow?
Yeah, but then the person who's not dead would have to be one of Nanjo, Jessica, George, and Maria.
What?
Because then the person who is not dead would have to be one of Nanjo, Jessica, George, and Maria. If it was anyone else, she would be aiding that person, and that would make them a culprit.
It wouldn't have to be. Suppose I am Battler, I knock someone out, cover them in blood, and say they have been killed. They remain unconscious for the remainder of the story. I have not aided them in anything, but they are alive. But I was not aiding them in being a culprit.
What does that get us?
I don't know, but it's logically possible.
I guess it's logically possible, but it's one of those things where we can create scenarios. We've talked a little bit about this, where we can use the logic to create scenarios where we have people who aren't where we wind up getting things that don't actually advance advance our end theories anymore. It's just we can logically create a scenario where someone fakes someone's death, but the person whose death they fake isn't a culprit themselves. And it's okay, but why would we need to do that? What does that get us? If it's not to get us into the culprit, that's just making things more complicated without, unless there's a reason for some make it that way, right?
I think that...
And that's what I'm thinking about the Kumasawa theory you're advancing here.
I think that regardless, though, I haven't even thought through, what if it is not the fact that there were 6 people laying there covered in blood? Because that could change up the truth values of some other things and not make all of those implications that I thought follow. So that may be a hole in my reasoning.
All right. Well, it's worth keeping in mind. However, under the theory we're currently advancing, she is telling the truth. Because this is Battler family theory, which works fine for us. A great tumult followed. Everyone gathered in the dining hall. Okay, so now everyone is here. It's like Smash Bros.
I don't want to remember it. The sight of all the sobbing children crouched over the corpses of their own parents. There was a chance they might have been alive still. Everyone was shaking them desperately. But it was no use. Each of the children confirmed the deaths of their own parents.
Yep, that is absolutely true. And this one, Shannon would be telling the truth here, in which case Battler did absolutely confirm the death of his own parents. He was lying, but he did confirm it. And the statement Shannon is making is about the confirmation, not about whether the confirmation was true or false.
Yep.
Dr. Nanjo and I confirmed that Genji-sama was dead. Which, yep, sure.
No one is going to mistakenly confirm a death, even those other than myself.
Now, this is another interesting one.
Yep.
Because I had figured, what if Genji was the culprit and he could be lying about this, and then people could mistakenly confirm deaths? But it seems that can't be the case.
I think it was Genji was a weird case because that was one of the ones we worked out where for sure there were way more than 6. There were way too many dependencies on Genji.
So I wasn't thinking about Genji. What I was thinking about was this purple truth here, where if Nanjo was lying about this, it would seem that it would be possible for anybody to mistakenly confirm a death. But that doesn't seem to follow with our current interpretation of the purple statements, right? One where it's as absolute as the red truth.
Mm-hmm.
So on that reading, Nanjo's statement here kind of is meaningless. No one could mistakenly confirm a death anyway.
Yep,
they could only
they can only tell the truth.
They could only either say what is in fact the case, or they could be a culprit and lie.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it seems like that one, which I originally thought would be a loophole, isn't.
Yeah, it's once you start picking out the rules of this, you realize what the limitations are, and it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot more hard walls on this than it seems at first.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, this is fine because Battler is not mistakenly confirming a death. He's very intentionally confirming a death falsely.
It looks like all the victims died instantly.
Yep, then that holds. Everyone who was a victim died instantly. Sure.
Yeah.
After inspecting the interior of the dining hall, we determined that all the doors and windows had been locked, making it a closed room. Again, that's fine if there are perpetrators are in there. We're saying it's Kyrie who's doing but it could as easily be Rudolph here. It doesn't really matter for this.
Mm-hmm.
I think the important thing is that whoever does the first Twilight, they're only killing 4 people, so they also wind up being the one who does the second Twilight to make sure it's 6 on the dot to match the red. But you could swap Kyrie and Rudolph around and it's fine.
Yep.
Oh, and nothing suspicious was found inside the dining hall. Well, how convenient that you're lying about that.
They found something incredibly suspicious inside the dining hall, but no one else talked about it for some reason.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Of course, there was no one hiding in the dining hall either.
Yep, no one is hiding. Naturally, all of us are here right now. It's clear that no one is hiding.
But Dad, if that's true, it doesn't make sense. 6 people were killed and the dining hall is a closed room. How could someone have killed them and escaped? So that's interesting. Scroll back up. If white text can't be false, then our theory breaks because Jessica says 6 people were killed.
Yeah. Then maybe we're wrong about what that means because is that a lie or is she just saying what she assumes is the? Because it's not a purple statement.
Mm-hmm. Right, but it doesn't have to be a lie. It's a matter of is it absolutely true or not?
I think what she's doing here is advancing how could that, if that is true, that doesn't make sense. Because this is a hypothetical she's advancing. 6 people were killed. If that's true, it doesn't make sense. 6 people were killed in the dining hall. It's a closed room. How could someone have killed them and escaped?
I don't think that 6 people were killed is a hypothetical. There's a couple different sentences there, and one of them clearly says that 6 people were killed.
Yeah, but that
The
one's
dining hall is a
following.
closed
That one
room.
clearly is following the hypothetical scenario she's started advancing in the. First
Yeah,
set.
I don't buy that at all. I think we can't expect that what's
Okay.
in white is necessarily
Okay.
true.
That's
Now,
fine.
it may not be a lie. It may be the case indeed. I think that's what we were missing. They can't lie if they're not culprits, but they can be wrong when they speak.
There
in
you go.
white.
That's what it
I
is.
think that's it.
Okay.
Because she's wrong. She's not lying,
but she's wrong. Okay. Okay. There. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot. You could tell we spent a long time going back and forth over how to interpret these rules,
Mm-hmm.
which we still might be interpreting them incorrectly. But you know what?
I at least think we're interpreting them less incorrectly than we were to start with.
That's fair. Yeah.
I'd rather not think of it, but perhaps the servants with their master keys are the most suspicious.
They killed the 6th, then left and locked the door with their master keys. It's a logical theory.
Ah, that's absurd.
Since there was no chance of the culprit hiding inside the dining hall, it made sense to assume that the culprit locked the door after committing the murder and exiting the room. It was only natural that the servants with their master keys would fall under suspicion. And sadly enough, none of the servants had an alibi. Then again, it wasn't only the servants. Everyone else lacked an alibi as well, which is...
Convenient.
Is there any way to lock up from the outside without a master key? No, there isn't. That's not enough. I'll say it with the red truth. All doors can only be locked or unlocked with a master key. Of course, it is possible to lock or unlock the doors from inside the room even without a master key. Which is important. For our version of the second Twilight.
Yep, because Kyrie and Rudolph would have to lock up.
Yeah,
Before faking their
whoever is hiding in the room at the end would have to lock up afterwards.
There you have it. Any other questions? Shouldn't there be keys to each individual room in addition to the master keys?
Right. I think we can skip by this part.
Yeah.
Because they're just talking, or they're just... Red truth. We'll consider master keys to be the only keys that exist. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We get around all of the other locked rooms anyway by just having conspirators, so...
Yeah, we don't need a single key for Battler of Theory.
Yep.
We don't need one single key.
Oh, in other words, all of the locks that appear in this game can only be locked or unlocked by master keys.
That's what it means. It really is a simple game. In that case, we should now check the number of master keys and who holds them.
Right. Okay, yeah. 5 master keys. Yep.
This is the other interesting one. That we know there are 5 master keys.
Yep.
And we know that one of those is held by Canon, but also Canon and Shannon are pretty clearly the same person, but also it's not clear that they are even in this game, but also he's still treated as dead when she is, and the key treated as destroyed.
So we mentioned that at the very beginning of this, like how we might need to use knowledge like that to solve it. I don't think that's I think this is just a standalone game as like a final exam for the very end to be like, hey, how can you reason this stuff out?
Mm-hmm.
I think in this game we're like allowed, I think it's, here's the thing, even if we assume that Shannon and Cannon's master key is the same master key, it doesn't change anything about our theory.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think for this game we can assume that they are different pieces acting separately, but also, as we know, Cannon doesn't factor into this game at all.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's also wildly puzzling, even if they are. Either way gives us counterintuitive things, and if Cannon is a piece here, then Cannon dies, but isn't one of the victims, presumably? Or is treated as killed, but nobody reacts to Cannon no longer being there.
Yep.
Or goes looking, and yeah, pretty fucking weird. I personally am going through it on Shannon is Cannon as the assumption, as we know, just because that seems to be the least weird.
Yeah, that's
for
fair.
Consequences, but I could be wrong.
I'm of the opinion that it doesn't matter either way, since we can deduce that Cannon just can't factor into the game as either a culprit or a victim, so it's wholly incidental. I guess the only difference then is that, like, would that make their master key the same master key? Or
can we factor in that Cannon isn't a victim?
Yeah.
I just realized. How?
What do you mean, how? He's just not a factor in the game at all.
Yeah, how do we know that Cannon wasn't a victim? All we are told is that Cannon is now treated as dead. What if someone killed Cannon?
Then it's the same person who killed Shannon at the same Twilight. It's fine, and nothing changes.
It's the same person, if we're going on the theory that they are the same person. But what if I'm wrong? What if you're right? They are 2 separate pieces, and someone kills Cannon. Cannon is treated as dead. But it could be someone else who kills Cannon.
That doesn't really help us, though.
It absolutely.
Because what our theory comes down to is that we're gonna get Rudolph out of the mansion, right, and then have him be the one committing a lot of the murders during the second half.
Yeah. So
Battler will have his moment, and the thing is, when he's just running around doing those murders, it doesn't really matter if there's an extra one or not.
So my point isn't for this theory, which works great.
Yep.
It's that it breaks down my logic for the others.
Ah, okay.
So I think there are other logically possible theories if Cannon is a separate piece and could have been a victim. And I did not think about that until right now.
Okay. I think we're allowed... I think we can reasonably assume he's not a victim, and that when he is now treated as dead and Cannon runs off. Because Cannon runs off is given in the narration.
I don't remember what we got in the narration, but I guess
let's keep going for now. Oh, what the heck? Yeah, okay. The keys are special in this game, but that's fine because it turns out we don't actually need them to do this. I tried to retrieve Genji-san's master key, but had no luck.
To guard against trouble later on, we destroyed Genji's master key.
That's reasonable.
It was tough because no one can remove it from his person, so we just kind of had to toss a shaped charge at the corpse.
Yep.
Blood went flying everywhere.
Oh my god. This was the crime of the first Twilight. Scene was the locked room of the dining hall. And the servants holding master keys have alibis. Again, no one else has an alibi either. Okay, that's fine. We've proposed our solution. It is Kyrie. Cool. That's all fine. Second Twilight. Everyone returned to the parlor to discuss what should be done next. Phones were out, so they couldn't contact the police. Some mysterious culprit had... Yeah. None of them had alibis, and any one of them could have been a culprit. Okay, cool.
Fuck. If Cannon was available as a victim, it would mean George could be a killer without forcing Maria to also be.
That would be fucked up.
Oh no.
However,
oh, no.
I think it's fine if we assume Cannon is.
Yeah.
It just doesn't factor in.
Plus, I think we just have the correct theory anyway.
Yes.
Because this one's working so far.
Well, let's see. That tense feeling didn't last long. By midday, everyone got tired of arguing, and they decided to take a break. Okay. Krasnodzy announced that they wanted to talk with each other alone and went up to the second floor. Okay. That was the beginning, and after that, everyone went their separate ways now and then, such as to head to the bathroom or gaze at the endless rain. This is fine, because this means Battler can now go to the dining hall, and if they locked it up, Kiri and Rudolph can just open it from the inside. Actually, Battler doesn't even need to do anything. Doing this part, just people are walking around, right? That's fine. So now, Kyrie and Rudolph leave the dining hall, and they don't even have to lock it behind them because it's still unlocked at this moment. Battler is walking around, and he can go up to Krasnodzy's room and be like, "Hello, hey, I need you to talk to you for a moment," right? That opens the door, gets them in. No matter how much time passed, Krasnodzy were the only ones who didn't return. And then he goes back, and then Battler just goes back down to everyone.
Yep.
Calls were sent to both Krasnodzy's rooms using the essential phone line. There was no answer. Something might have happened. One headed to Krasnodzy's rooms together. In Nazi's room, they found Krasnodzy lying sprawled on the floor. Right. So they get them to open up. Kyrie goes in and kills these two and is now hiding under the bed.
Yep.
Oh, Madam's room was locked. It's just like the dining hall.
And that's fine because she locked it before hiding.
After getting everyone's permission, I unlocked the door.
Cross-sama Natsuhi-sama lay sprawled on the floor inside the room. Dr. Najo checked their pulse. Then he announced the two of them had died instantly.
I confirm. There can be no doubt they died. And this is fine. Because again, they're dead in this theory. Oh, here we go. This is interesting.
I searched all over the room, looking for a clue. In the end, I found that the windows and doors had all been locked, making it a closed room.
That's the... Okay, so that was her finding. Okay, I'm cool with that. We're cool if that's her finding.
Another closed room. We servants all have master keys, so we'll be suspected again.
Oh, but I have no fear. After Madam began to suspect us, we started keeping an eye on each other.
All of us servants were together the whole time.
All of us servants can prove an alibi for all the other servants.
Which is fine. We don't suspect any of them in this case.
Now that's interesting. So you're saying that this closed room is even more complete?
In case the first closed room, no one had an alibis. For this closed room, all of them have alibis.
In this world, the servants themselves become living master keys. Since those servants have perfect alibis, it was impossible to lock Natsuhi's room.
Now, it's interesting that Shannon and Cannon are the only ones who lie about this, but
Yep.
the fact that Cannon... So, like, we had one idea where, like, oh, shit, you could get them in there because if Shannon's a culprit, then not everyone had to be there. I don't know how we work that in with our feeling about Cannon, since he also said it, but it turns out not to matter for this theory, so let's move on.
Yeah, if Shannon and Cannon are both there and are separate pieces, and Cannon indeed dies, then Shannon is definitely innocent.
Yeah, and that would make it harder. But, however, we've already broken into this room. We don't care.
We decided to preserve the crime scene as it was.
Put package tape all over the outside of the doors and windows, sealing them.
I'm sure the culprit left some sort of clue in this room. We made sure that no one would be able to enter or leave until the police arrived.
Yep, and now Kyrie is just hanging out in Kraus and Natsuhi's room until the very end.
Just taped in there.
Just
taking
taped
a
in
nap
there.
under the
Now,
bed.
Rudolph, at this point,
has already gotten up and left.
Rudolph is now in the wind. He needs to get out of the mansion. So he's gonna at this point he's out. He's probably already out of the mansion at this point.
Yeah.
because they're about to tape everything up.
I think it'll be most convenient if he is hiding in the guest house by this point, so that
Probably,
we
yeah.
can get around anything about locks on those doors.
Yep.
We also see the dining hall in the same way.
But importantly, did not go into it. And also, Battler's the one saying this, so.
But we do get in red that the seals on the dining hall stand.
Yes. Okay.
So I
So
think that this one is true regardless.
right. The important part is that they didn't go in to check anything.
Yep.
So, if there was someone missing already, they wouldn't have noticed. Rudolph is now in the wind.
We reach
We're to conclusion that the entire mansion itself should be preserved. Or to show the mansion itself and all this took refuge in the guest house.
Now, Rudolph is lying in wait in the guest house at this point.
I
They
think
sealed
so.
the old mansion. Vacuum tape on all the windows. They even used a ladder for the windows on the third floor.
The game would get complicated otherwise, so I simplified it. All the windows had steel bars on them, so it's impossible to enter or leave by them. We'll say they can seal the whole mansion by sealing the two doors, the front one and the back one.
Got it. That makes it easy.
What do you think?
Actually, killing the two people not in Natsuhi's room would be easy. Someone just had to knock and get them to open the door. They couldn't lock it afterwards.
Only the servants can lock doors, but all the servants have alibis.
That's not true.
Yeah, that's not true.
That's not true at all.
It's definitely not.
Unless the servants are all in it together. More importantly, the first Twilight has me suspicious.
It's also not true that they'd all have to be in it together.
Yep.
You think that one of the 6 who died in the dining hall was actually alive and committed the crime. I do.
It's because of Erica. I can't help but be suspicious when people are examining corpses.
So, you think that one of the first 6 victims was alive?
Yeah, afterwards they killed Kraus and Natsuhi. Then they locked the door from the inside, hid inside the room, and found a good chance to escape.
That theory does make logical sense.
I'll say it in red. The culprit of the first Twilight really did kill 6 people. Which is...
True, they
Which
just
is-
didn't kill
Yep.
6 at that time.
Yep. It's interesting that they are advancing what is largely our theory. However, Bern is shooting it down by going after their overextensions and not the core of it, right?
Yeah, just giving irrelevant but true red truths that seem like they deny it. Then I'll take a shot with the blue truth. Here's the true nature of this closed room. The culprit locked the door from the inside, then hid in Natsuhi's room. Then, after everyone left, they found an opportunity to escape.
See this part, the completely superfluous.
Yep.
You are so close, Beato. Sure, I'll deny that in red. Group sealed the room at the same time they left. No culprit joined the group as they left. Also, all the seals on Natsuhi's room, the dining hall, the mansion itself will not be broken. And Lambda's laughing because she's like, you were so close there,
Yeah.
Beato.
In other words, you can't use that trick where they hide under the bed and slip out later.
Yeah, we don't need him to slip out later.
Interesting. Nice going, Bern Castle.
Thanks.
So the crime scene of the second Twilight. Scene was Nazi's room, locked, closed room. This time all the servants with master keys have alibis. Whole group, realizing the dangers of being inside the mansion, took shelter in the guest house.
Okay. All good so far.
Yeah, doing good.
Yeah, this is really impressive. All those who took refuge in the guest house decided to hold up in there until the typhoon passed. There, if everyone watched everyone else, they should be able to prevent further crimes from both inside and outside. All those. Okay, so everyone alive now is in the guest house. Oh, all those who took refuge in the guest house. So I guess Rudolph. I guess that the way that's phrased means that they don't have to be in the guest house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that gets us anything to assume they're not, but everyone watch everyone else. Should be able to prevent further crimes. I'm going to be able to keep it up without any breaks until the typhoon passed. Once again, their actions left a weak point open, forced faced with yet another tragedy.
Okay. Shannon, John, and Kaneko went outside on an errand and still haven't come back.
George Nissan got upset, so we all went outside to look for them.
We found Shannon-chan lying there in the rose garden. Poor Shannon-chan.
I prayed she was still alive. However, I was forced to acknowledge that she was dead.
Yep. Horse house examined her and confirmed her death.
The two of them left. We were busy checking the locks around the guest house, so not one of us has an alibi.
Which is fine. I think we assume like this is the one that we have Battler do. Just because he gets really knotted in some of the stuff later on.
Yeah, and this one is nice and easy because nobody has an alibi here except for George. So sure, Battler lures Shannon out somewhere and kills her, and then comes back and just like, oh, they never came back. They're missing. Oh no.
Yep. So, yeah, I guess we could have Rudolph do this, and maybe Battler does one later. But this is the easiest one without having to jump through a lot of hoops.
I think it may turn out that we have to have this be Battler's one. Even
You think all the other ones will preclude him?
it might? We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
That'll be cool.
Me kill her? How could I have killed her?
Yeah, but that's right. George Oni-chan couldn't kill her. Ooh.
Later on, we learned that George Nissan alone had an alibi. At the very least, George Nissan couldn't possibly have killed Shannon.
To turn it around, anyone other than George Oniki could have killed her.
That's true,
That's
killer.
true.
That's true.
To prevent the culprit from using it for any mischief, we destroyed the master key Shannon-san had on the spot.
Oh, at the time Shannon's killed, Cannon goes missing forever. For now, Cannon is treated as being killed. Also, Cannon's master key is treated as being destroyed.
Well, I thought it'd be rude, so I kept quiet about it, but that's what happens when Shannon dies.
Imagine getting this far and still not having figured out that they're the same.
It'd be so funny getting the entire fucking way through Umineko no Naku Koroni and not grasping that.
Right? Like that, because that's one of the ones the game like bends over backwards to try to get you to understand. Right?
But also bends over backwards to never explicitly confirm.
That's great.
In other words, we can interpret this as Shannon and Cannon being killed at the same time, even though we're missing a corpse.
That's right. Ooh. See, the crimes are moving along.
This was the crime of the fourth Twilight. The scene was the Rose Garden. There were no locks or doors. It wasn't a closed room. Master keys were no longer a factor. The pace of the crimes began to accelerate. Okay, we're all good so far.
I think the wording there and about Cannon and all of that also does specifically confirm that if we allow Cannon to be a separate piece, then an Eva Hideyoshi George theory works fine. Because George simply kills Cannon.
All right. Well, I don't even know if we'll need to resort to any of those bigger distended ones.
We
because
won't.
This is holding up remarkably well so far.
Yeah.
Everyone took shelter in the guest house. Okay, so now everyone is in the guest house. Carefully sealed all the doors and windows, locking themselves in a closed room. But
With
we
Rudolph
know,
already in it.
huh?
With Rudolph already in it.
Yep. And we also don't get anything about these seals breaking. However, several closed room murders already occurred. Locking themselves in a closed room do anything more than invite another tragedy. Arguing fiercely in the cousin room about finding the culprit, they decided they should double-check Nanjo, Kumasawa, and Goda's testimony. There, they learned a tragedy had occurred once more.
Kumasawa-san's case of such wounds would be resulted in instant death. Where's some way to die?
Like hell they could survive with wounds like this. Goto-san and Kumasawa-san are both dead.
We have been busy keeping a lookout and looking up at all that. Good job, Rudy. Once again, none of us has an alibi. Which, weirdly, I guess Battler could have done this one, but oh, hold on. What's up, George?
That's not true. Look, if they were killed in that way, the culprit would definitely have gotten blood splatter on themselves.
Yeah, but Dr. Nanjo and all the cousins have no blood spatter on them.
All of us, in other words, the 4 cousins and Dr. Nanjo, couldn't have killed Goto-san or Kumasawa-san.
Right, and since she's not a culprit, she has to be telling the truth here, so Battler couldn't have done it. Which means Rudolph now has a nice coat of blood.
Yeah, this also is interesting because I think we picked up as well and weren't sure what to do with Battler saying, none of us have an alibi, and Jessica saying, yes, we have an alibi.
I think she's saying that he's saying none of them have it. Well, it also doesn't matter if he's lying.
Mm-hmm. But I mean in terms of what other things are impacted other than this thing.
Right.
Because if that's the case, if it's a direct contradiction, it would imply that Battler and Jessica, one at least of those two would have to
Right,
be,
because
as well as Battler and
that was
George.
something I tried looking at early on, was directly contradictory purple.
Mhm.
And there were only a couple of cases where you could be construed to be directly contradictory.
Mhm.
However, it was none of them were so firm that I could.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wound up abandoning that. In that case, it's clear the culprit is someone other than us.
I guess that someone might have snuck in, so I checked around, but the guest house was still completely locked up.
That's fine. Perhaps the culprit is Master Key after all.
It's possible. No Master Keys exist anymore except the 2 keys on the 2 people who lie dead here.
Since the 2 master keys that exist are here inside the guest house, that makes this guest house a perfect closed room.
Right, which is fine because Rudolph is just walking around tracking blood everywhere, or Battler let him in and then let him out.
Mm-hmm.
But since someone's dead, it obviously wasn't perfect. Nah.
It's the crime of the 5th and 6th Twilights. The scene was a closed room known as the guest house. Goto and Kumasawa's master keys were also destroyed, meaning all master keys have now been destroyed. No one could break into this closed room guest house. At least that should have been the case.
Ah.
All right. Now this is Nanjo, right? It's where things start to get really tight and contorted here.
Mm-hmm.
This time, Dr. Nanjo was killed. He died in the entrance hall of the guest house. It's far too foolish of him to come here alone to check that everything was locked.
He's dead. He's been killed. Even I can say for sure that this was an instant death.
Everything is locked up perfectly. How would it happen if this is a closed room?
That means the culprit is one of us.
Or Rudy.
Impossible. Judging by the circumstances, Maria, Battler, George, Nissan, and I all couldn't have killed Dr. Nanjo.
Yep, Battler. You're right. I think that was the only one Battler could have done. Battler can't do this one.
In the first place, no one could kill Dr. Nanjo inside the guest house.
And look at this. Simply put, this is proof that Dr. Nanjo didn't leave the guest house.
Except Battler's the one saying that. Battler's a culprit. So
Yep.
Battler's lying about Dr. Nanjo. But George is true that he couldn't have left that he wasn't killed in the guest house. However, Battler is lying that Nanjo didn't leave the guest house.
So something weird happened, like Battler and or Rudolph lure him out of the guest house, kill him outside the guest house,
And then just drag
him
his corpse back in
and
and
then
lock
log
up.
up behind him.
Yeah, which
there's no
fine.
reason to do, but it's logically possible.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
I mean, someone could kill Dr. Nanjo, right? So how was he killed?
No one can answer that innocent question. This was the 7th Twilight. Once again, the crime scene was the closed room known as the guest house. Various bits of evidence made this crime seem even more impossible. Then the tragedy reached the 8th Twilight, the final Twilight.
Alrighty. Moment of truth.
Moment of truth. Does this hold up? If you got this in 1, I'm gonna be so proud of you. Because I want to make sure we give credit here. Like, Vivian is the one that advanced this first theory of Battler family theory. So by now it is clear that holding up wouldn't keep them safe. Jessica might have chosen anger as a way to number fear. Flew out of the guest house in a rage, searching for the culprit that surely hid somewhere outside. George, Battler, and Maria Hurley chased after her. I guess it makes sense that Rudolph probably had left that guest house at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, Here's what happened. They lured Nanjo out. He killed Nanjo. Battler like, hold on. Drags him back in.
Mm-hmm.
Locks up the door.
Yeah.
And now Rudolph is still outside, waiting for Jessica.
Yep.
George, Battler, and Maria hurriedly chased after her. Then outside the building, they found Jessica lying on the ground. It was, as anyone could tell at a glance, a gruesome corpse.
Poor Jessica-chan. She probably died instantly.
There's no way anyone can live through this. Yeah.
3 of us were together the whole time. George, Aniki, Maria, and I couldn't have killed Jessica.
Yeah. 3 of us couldn't have killed Jessica.
Thanks, Maria.
As if Maria-chan could kill someone. Maria-chan couldn't kill anyone.
Yeah, thanks. George Ani-chan could have killed an adult. He could kill a kid, though. Nah.
I don't understand it at all. What the hell is going on here? This was the 8th twilight. The crime scene was outside. However, the 3 who chased after Jessica have alibis. George, Battler, and Maria couldn't have killed Jessica. So is there really someone hiding on this island apart from the Yoshiromiya family? The curtain is lowered on this tale. For now. I think... I don't see any flaws in that. I think that's the answer.
It seems to work.
I think that's the answer. I think genuinely that is the answer. Do we want to try spinning out some of the more elaborate ones?
I don't know that going through the whole thing again
is worth it. Yeah. All right. Well, let's just make... Huh.
I do wonder what the hints are.
I do wonder what the hints are as well. So I guess we'll start doing this now then. And we might have to break up a recording session or something in here, but I can edit all this stuff together later. So now I guess now that we're locking in ourselves on Battler, Kyrie, Rudolph theory, that is what we are committing to.
Yep.
What we're doing, and what I'll do is I'm gonna drop. I've already done it. Like this save right here.
Yep.
Is before we've done any of the hints, in case there is something about the game. However, for content's sake, I do want to see what the hints are.
Yeah. I'm curious if they go down.
It looks like there are going to be a fair amount of them.
Oh, interesting. I wonder.
Yeah. All right. So now we're going to lock in our final answer here, right?
Yeah.
In the duel between us and Ryokishi,
Yeah.
our answer is Battler, Kyrie, Rudolph. That is our final answer.
Yep.
However, for the sake of content, we are going to see what the hints are.
Just in case.
Now, we do have a separate save. In case this matters, I don't think it does, but like both of these saves are before we've clicked on any hints, just in case. But let's do some content.
These purple statements are quite a problem.
Oh, we know that their statement's important enough to be on par with the red truth, but they also contain the culprit's lies.
Even the dumbest idiot wouldn't try swallowing a roll whole if there might be a needle inside.
I'm done with this. Actually, thank you.
Indeed. If we accept the purple blindly, there's no chance the truth will come to light.
A roll with a needle in it. I like that analogy. This precious vital information might all be wasted thanks to one tiny lie.
Just which lines in this vast collection of purple have lies in them? Just thinking about it makes my head hurt.
Then why don't we try spinning the chessboard around?
Oh, what do you mean?
It's simple. Forget which ones are lies. Let's concentrate on finding out which ones must be true.
Are there any purple statements that we know must be true?
That's what we're looking for. We'll look for people who can't possibly be the culprit. If we can do that, all their purple statements are the same as red truth.
I see. Instead of searching for the culprit, we'll start searching for those who couldn't be the culprit.
Which is
not what I did.
I mean, it's attacking. Yeah, it's not what we did, but it's doing it from the same angle, right? Rather than trying to start by taking the purple at face value, you start by trying to determine like, okay, what would the sides look like, and then using that to inform the purple.
This suggestion I find interesting though, because one thing we definitely didn't do is ever find a case where someone had to be innocent and from that things followed that were especially useful. Like we found out at the end of a lengthy analysis that Genji had to be innocent, for example, and really dead, but he didn't tell us things in his purple that were useful.
Right. And that took a whole long chain of reasoning for something that really didn't help us at all in the end.
So I wonder if there's another way to do it.
I guess who couldn't possibly I think yeah, okay.
That's it. There's got to be someone, so let's look through it carefully.
In other words, you got to start from square one, huh?
Let's see what they can do. Oh, I expected those to be a little bit longer, actually. Oh, yeah, there are going to be a couple of these. All right, let's see what else we got.
How can we know for sure that someone isn't the culprit?
Well, what are the rules that the culprit can't die, right? In other words, though it might sound cruel, we can trust anyone who's dead.
Rosa intensifies. Oh, that makes it easy. Almost all the characters were killed. So we can trust the purple of all those people.
But it isn't quite that simple. There's the issue of people playing dead, which pops up so often even in our games.
The bodies of all victims were examined, were they not? Nanjo even said with purple that no one would make a mistake when examining bodies.
If Dr. Nanjo's the culprit, then we can't even rely on that. At a glance, it may look as though all the victims were examined, but all confirmations of their deaths are in purple statements. We can't be 100% sure.
Okay, so this is introducing you to the idea of looking for those dependencies, right?
Mm-hmm. Then whose death can we be sure about?
At any rate, let's check all the examinations over again. Let's look for someone who we can be absolutely certain is dead, in some way more reliable than these purple statements.
That's interesting, because that's also not
the way we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we made it harder on ourselves?
Yeah, what if there's just some easy fact that lets us get to Battler Kyrie Rudolph theory, and we just missed it and went the long way around?
Wow. All right.
Yes, I've got it. Battler, it's the narrated parts. We've been told that there are no lies in the narrated sections.
I just realized that too. Berncastle announced in red that there are no lies in the narration.
Oh, looks like they figured it out.
They wouldn't get anywhere if they didn't.
That's funny, because we didn't rely on that at first.
Yeah, we used that as like the as the way of checking our work.
Yeah.
Because like we were aware that had to be the case, but we used that as like okay, this is how we'll know whether or not things. Wow.
This is really interesting.
This is fascinating.
I'm glad we're doing these for the content.
Me too. This is fascinating stuff here.
Are there any deaths confirmed by the narration? That would mean we can say for sure that the person in question is dead.
And that automatically means they are the culprit.
And on top of that, it means we can trust their purple.
Let's look for deaths that are mentioned in the narration. Ones that aren't vague about whether the person is alive or dead, like X was lying on the ground.
Yes, let's read through it once more from the start. Oh my god. Oh my god. Is anyone? Did we miss that when we just read back through? Did we miss that?
I don't think so. We were looking for stuff like that.
Oh my god.
Or maybe we just went by us because it was confirming a death that we already assumed was.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Battler, look. The narration. Oh my god. We missed it. Nanjo's dead. For sure. Holy fuck, we missed that.
Because we were looking for like. I think what we looked when we were starting to look for stuff like that, we started trying to find like stuff where like different people were making statements about whether or not someone was dead. But
damn, this makes it so much easier too. That makes Shannon innocent for sure.
Yep.
Holy shit.
I found one too. In the 8th Twilight, the narration clearly mentions Jessica's gruesome corpse.
Holy shit, and that rules out the other theory the other optional theories that we had.
Yeah, because both of those involve Jessica.
Oh my god, we took such a long way to get to the correct theory.
Wow.
So,
I think we might have noticed the part about Jessica's corpse if we had been reading it with Jessica theory in mind. But maybe.
I just hadn't paid attention to it. Yeah. So, in other words,
Dr. Nanjo and Jessica are definitely dead. And that means
we've proven that Nanjo and Jessica aren't culprits. And that means
all of their purple statements are the same as red truth.
Indeed. That's right.
Wow, we made this so much harder on ourselves.
But
the
we still
pair
fucking got
gave
there.
each other a high five.
I think.
Hey, you got there. You were the one that you were the one that brought this theory forward.
I did not solo this. We have got like 10, 15 pages worth of stuff writing out different logic.
Okay,
that
we
both
do. We
did.
do have a whole
We
lot
both
of
worked on
of
this
stuff
together.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have got there without you.
Aw. Pair gave each other a high five. Finally, they had found their first big clue. A safe slice on the roll with a needle in it. They discovered some purple statements they could trust.
Let's try writing out Nanjo's and Jessica's purple statements. These are the same as Red Truth. We're finally getting somewhere.
If we're sure that Dr. Nanjo isn't the culprit, then his purple statement for the first twilight, no one is going to mistakenly confirm a death, even those other than myself, becomes very important.
Does it? Oh, even in non-purple statements now. In other words, no one will make any mistakes when confirming deaths.
So anytime Dr. Nanjo or Jessica confirms a death, we can be absolutely sure it's true.
So, anyone whose death was confirmed by Nanjo and Jessica cannot be the culprit. Uh-oh. Looks like they're moving along.
It's strange. I find it annoying that they're making progress, but they did get stuck. That would just be boring. Okay, let's check their examinations and find some more characters who can't be the culprit.
Indeed. You know how they have that conference for people who enjoy boring stuff?
What?
Well, they do. They have one. They should have one for people who, or not even people who enjoy boring stuff. It's dreadfully boring. They probably don't enjoy it, but they have a conference for boring stuff.
Are you going somewhere with this?
Yes, they should also have a conference for annoying stuff, which they don't. And then the
Oh.
two conferences should fight. Everybody
What brought
trying to
this
be
on?
really boring and bored, but other people are trying to be really annoying.
Okay.
Bird was saying, oh, well, it's really annoying that they're making progress, but I'm bored otherwise. And that made me think, can you be bored and annoyed at the same time? The answer is yes. And I bet you could be really bored and annoyed if it's done right. But you'd need an expert.
I'm so glad that. Thank you.
Battler, I've finished checking Nanjo and Jessica's purple statements.
This is not at all how we went about this. Oh, what is this?
What the fuck is this song?
Yeah.
People whose deaths were confirmed by those two are definitely dead. That means they can't be culprits.
Which in turn increases the number of purple statements we can trust.
Let's start with Dr. Nanjo. Confirmed the deaths of the victims of the second twilight, Uncle Kraus and Natsuhi.
Then, on the fourth twilight, he also confirmed Shannon's death.
On the fifth and sixth twilights, he even confirmed Goda-san and Kumasawa-san's deaths.
The number of innocent people has skyrocketed. In addition to Nanjo and Jessica, we now know that Kraus, Natsuhi, Shannon, Goda, and Kumasawa
Oh, it's this
cannot
track.
be culprits.
I didn't recognize it just from the drums alone, but the piano thing. Yeah.
That's not all. Before twilight, Bern Castle announced Cannon-kun's death with the red truth. Culprit can't die, so Cannon-kun isn't the culprit either.
Nanjo, Jessica, Kraus, Natsuhi, Shannon, Cannon, Goda, and Kumasawa. All 8 of them are not the culprit. Oh, all of a sudden they now have 8 suspects less.
It's only natural they'd make it this far. This is where it really begins.
Now, the number of purple statements we can trust has grown tremendously. We're really getting into the thick of it.
Yeah, let's check through the purple statements of these characters we've just proven innocent.
So now they're going in reverse order of the thing that we did, because we did find what does everybody's purple statements imply about other people. But I use that as like a starting point.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, if you are
Wow.
lying, so-and-so else must be lying. And now they're doing it the opposite way.
You know what? I think part of the reason we didn't find the solution they did was part of our hesitance at whether or not we could trust our interpretation of what the rules meant. You know what I mean? Like, with that clarity, it becomes obvious that you can go about it in that manner. But I think we still had questions.
I also I was looking for deaths confirmed in the white text and didn't see any in that second read through. So I just plain missed it. Kraus, Natsuhi, Shannon, Cannon, Goda, Kumasawa. I've looked through the purple statements for all the people we just proved innocent.
Yeah, and as a result, we've proven that Genji-san isn't the culprit.
After the first twilight, Cannon announces in a purple statement that he confirmed Genji's death. That clears Genji of suspicion as well.
So now a total of 9 people have been proven innocent. Things are going pretty well.
Right. It looks like Shannon's and Kumasawa's purple statements confirm that the 6 people of the first Twilight all died. No, they don't.
We shouldn't accept that so easily.
Why not? We can trust Shannon's and Kumasawa's statements, can we not? Yeah, right? If you're sure they aren't culprits, why can't you trust their purple statements?
Kumasawa-san, for example, only said that they were lying there covered in blood. It's not clear whether they're alive or dead. Can't call this a perfect examination of 6 victims.
Shannon speaks of those 6 in a different way. She says each of the children confirmed the death of their own parents.
In the dining hall, that means George, Aniki, Maria, and I each examined our own parents. However, we haven't proven yet that any of those 3 are innocent.
So now this we did. We did.
Yeah, okay, yeah. We caught on to
We're
this
back.
part.
We're back on track. Oh, I get it. Shannon's words prove that the children confirmed each of the 6 deaths in the dining hall, but they don't prove that the examinations those kids performed were legitimate.
That's it. Since we can't deny the possibility the kids are lying, we still can't remove all 6 people in the dining hall from suspicion.
How troublesome. Those 3 are the survivors who live until the end. Since they're alive, it makes it impossible to prove that they aren't culprits.
Battler, George, and Maria. While these survivors are very likely to be culprits, it's also probably the hardest to prove them innocent.
At any rate, it looks like those 9 are the only ones whose innocence we can be sure of thanks to their confirmed deaths.
From here on out, it'll just be pure reasoning based off purple statements of the 9 we can trust.
Nanjo, Jessica, Kraus, Natsuhi, Shannon, Cannon, Goda, Kumasawa, and Genji. All we can do is read through their purple statements once more.
Things are going to get hard starting now. Let's steel ourselves and take a shot at it.
Indeed. It's finally starting to feel like a real mystery.
God, stop staring at me like that, Bern. She doesn't look as menacing in this.
Yeah.
She takes up so much less of the space.
Yeah.
It just doesn't hit right, you know?
Hey Beato, I found something interesting. In this chain of crimes, master keys can never be used.
Come to think of it, the group of 9 innocent people includes all 5 servants, doesn't it?
Only the servants can use master keys. They can't hand them over to someone else. And since people who aren't culprits themselves can't assist culprits, the master keys can't be used for crimes. Since it's been guaranteed in red that all 5 servants are innocent, we know that the master keys have nothing to do with the crimes.
Yes, that's right. And that makes this even more troublesome, correct? All of these closed room murders, every one of them must be constructed without any master keys.
No, spin the chessboard around. This just means that they can all be constructed with tricks that don't involve master keys.
I see. So, we have the first Twilight, the closed room of the dining hall. The second Twilight, Natsuhi's closed room. And starting with the fifth Twilight, the closed room of the guest house. It seems we must look closely through those again.
Let's read it through once more carefully. All of the servants are innocent. Master keys can't be used. Let's think through it again with that in mind.
It'd be funnier if Bern just kept looking at you more and more disdainfully the more hints you used.
Yeah! I think I have a theory about the closed room of the first Twilight.
Well, let's hear it.
The corpse examinations of the victims in the first Twilight still aren't certain. In other words, what if one of them was really the culprit? They killed the other 5, locked the dining hall from the inside, and played dead.
True, they could create a closed room without using master key that way. Leaves us with a problem, though.
What problem?
Remember? When we were talking about the second Twilight, Berncastle said this with the red truth. The culprit of the first Twilight really did kill 6 people.
Yes, now that you mention it.
Because of that red, it seems all 6 people in the dining hall were dead after all. So how did someone lock the dining hall from outside without using a key?
Hey, Battler, does that red truth really confirm the deaths of all 6 people in the dining hall?
Yep.
We got this.
Well, doesn't it?
In that case, the 6 in the dining hall were all innocent. And excluding Genji, whose innocence has already been confirmed, we can remove 5 more people from the list of suspects, yes? In other words, 9 plus 5 equals 14 people have been proved innocent. There are only 3 left. Either Battler, George, or Maria is the culprit.
Wait a second. Let's think about this that's bugging me. That red truth did say the culprit killed 6 people. However, she didn't say the red right after the first Twilight.
I believe she said it back when we were talking about the second Twilight, yes?
I'd like to read through that bit again. Let's search. Feels like that was a strange time for her to say it.
Not bad.
Can't underestimate these two. Even their instincts are sharp.
It's so funny hearing those two compliment the reasoning of Beato and Battler while you're scrolling through the hints.
Yeah. Because they're not complimenting you.
Yep.
It would be much funnier if Berncastle just relentlessly negged you.
Right.
While the reader.
I was expecting that because, like, isn't the whole, like, thing is, like, look at you poor child who needs hints to solve riddles.
I've been thinking about the second Twilight's closed room, but no matter how many times I try, I keep ending up with the same theory.
You mean someone killing the pair of them, then locking the door from the inside and hiding?
Yes, since the master keys can't be used, the door must have been locked from the inside. So it only makes sense if the culprit was hiding somewhere in Natsuhi's room.
Yep. Right, that is weird. It says this in the narration. No matter how much time passed, Kraus and Natsuhi were the only ones who didn't return. And it continues. Everyone headed to Kraus's and Natsuhi's rooms together.
If Kraus and Natsuhi were the only ones who didn't return, that implies that everyone else did return to the parlor.
That's right. The criminal locked themselves in Natsuhi's room after committing the crime. They shouldn't have been able to return. Yet everyone except the victims did return.
That would make this crime impossible for all the survivors. So maybe we really should follow up on your theory of someone in the dining hall surviving and committing crimes later.
Come to think of it, when I mentioned that theory, I was hit with a red truth. My theory was that someone in the dining hall was alive and killed Kraus and Natsuhi. That theory was countered by the red. The culprit of the first Twilight really did kill 6 people.
Well, that red is hardly surprising. After all, the culprit went on to kill Kraus and Natsuhi, so they've killed a total of not just 6, but 8 people.
Huh? Hold on. They went on to kill Kraus and Natsuhi, which means...
Yep.
I got it. We've been fooled. I know what she meant by saying the culprit killed 6 people.
What do you mean you know what she meant? Explain yourself.
Culprit of the first Twilight really did kill 6 people. She said this right after the first Twilight. I probably wouldn't have found anything odd about it. Or since she said it after the second Twilight, a new possibility shows itself.
You don't mean that the 6 people who were killed includes the murders of the second Twilight?
That's it. The culprit really was hiding among the 6 in the dining hall. Later on, they snuck out of the dining hall, killed the 2 people in Natsuhi's room, locked the door from the inside, and hid somewhere in the room. The culprit could have only killed 5 people at most in the dining hall. However, if we add on the victims of the second Twilight, they would definitely have killed at least 6 times.
I see. Now it all adds up. You can construct the closed rooms of both the first and second Twilights without using master keys.
Well, you'd think so, but that reminds me of something else. Natsuhi's room was sealed immediately afterwards.
Yes, come to think of it, Lady Berncastle used the red truth to say this. The group sealed the room at the same time they left. No culprit joined the group as they left.
And she also said this, all the seals will not be broken.
In other words, the culprit is trapped in a closed room again.
That theory might explain the first and second Twilights, however the culprit would be sealed inside Natsuhi's room, unable to leave.
And that means they wouldn't be able to carry out the fourth Twilight and onwards. I thought it was such a nice theory, but I guess it's wrong.
I don't think we're wrong about this theory, but maybe it just needs some more tweaking. No, it does work. There's no problem if the culprit gets sealed up. Not as long as there's a second culprit.
A multiple culprit theory?
A mulprit theory, if you will.
Yes, that does seem to be the only way, the mulprit theory. That way, even if one culprit is sealed up, the other can continue murdering.
If you think about it, our theory needed an accomplice from the very beginning. The first Twilight, Aunt Ava, Uncle Hideyoshi, and that old bastard, Kirie-san and Aunt Rosa. In other words, everyone who hasn't been confirmed innocent had their deaths confirmed by people who also haven't been confirmed innocent. Unless those people were fellow culprits, no one would have been able to play dead.
You're right. After all, the rules say that only culprits can cooperate with other culprits.
Culprits are capable of lying even before they commit murder, so we have ourselves a theory. A game theory!
The culprit who carried out the first Twilight murders also carried out the second Twilight, then locked themselves up in Natsuhi's
That's
room.
exactly what our theory was.
Then the other culprit who lied about the first culprit's death carried on with the murders starting at the fourth Twilight.
Yes, it all matches up that way. So, which of them was it?
Unfortunately, so far, any one of them could be a culprit. However, we can say for sure that the crime wasn't committed by a single person. We know the culprit locked up Natsuhi's room was one of the 5 victims in the dining hall. We know the person who continued with the crimes was one of those who inspected the 5 suspicious corpses on the first twilight.
One of those who inspected the 5 suspicious corpses in the dining hall? That would be...
Battler George or Maria. We know that one of those 3 committed murders later on.
Excellent. Let's focus on those 3 and find the truth about those later crimes. Ha!
Wow.
Wow.
The next crime is the 4th twilight. Shannon was the one killed. No one has an alibi with one exception.
George, Jessica, who has been confirmed innocent, used the purple text to say that it was impossible for George to kill Shannon. So doesn't that mean either Battler or Maria must have killed her?
I'd like to think that, but it's too soon to be sure. Battler, Maria, and every other person except George lacks an alibi. Managed to prove the crime wasn't committed by a single person, but I didn't prove there were exactly 2 culprits. At this point in time, still too soon to be sure.
I see. There might be a culprit for the 1st and 2nd twilights, a culprit who lied about the first culprit's death, and another completely separate culprit as well. Yes, it was a mistake to overlook that.
The murder of Shannon was possible for anyone with only a single exception. Also, that fact alone isn't enough to prove that George Aniki is innocent.
I thought this would be an easy one, since there's no closed room, but on the contrary, we have no suspicious circumstances and no information to lead us to the culprit.
The pace of the crimes picks up starting here. Instead of getting stuck on this one part, we should start taking a look at the 5th twilight too.
Wow. There are a lot of hints.
It seems we have a problem with the 5th and 6th twilights. We can trust Jessica's purple statement since she said this. The 4 cousins and Dr. Nanjo couldn't have killed Goda-san or Kumasawa-san.
The 4 cousins and Nanjo, in other words, all of the survivors at this point in time. In the face of it, that makes this crime impossible.
However, that's where we can spin the chessboard around, correct?
You've got it. This actually gives us a simple answer. This twilight proves that there is a culprit who isn't Dr. Nanjo or one of the cousins.
Other than these survivors, everyone is supposed to be dead, and yet, it was impossible for the survivors to commit the crime.
It's absolute proof that one of the culprits faked their death.
And since there exists a culprit who faked his or her death, that's absolute proof that there were multiple culprits. Mulprits. Only a culprit can fake an examination and lie.
Mulprits. The 5th and 6th twilights may seem to be perfect impossible crimes, but this one incident alone tells us so much.
Impossible crimes are a double-edged sword. They have the power to make your opponents surrender, but they also make it possible for theories to break deep into your lines of defense. Long ago, you would surely have surrendered. How far you've come.
It's all because you've trained me so well.
The pair grinned to each other. They had been on the brink of death and back in their many intellectual games before now. They wouldn't be discouraged by a riddle like this.
Now, let's move on to the crimes of the 7th and the 8th twilights. I think we're getting pretty close to the core of things.
Yes, let's get ourselves ready and go.
The situation's exactly the same on the 7th twilight. As we could trust Jessica's purple statement, the 4 cousins, or in other words all of the survivors, couldn't have committed the crime.
And yet, there's something I don't quite get. The culprit of the first 2 twilights was someone in that group of 5 victims from the first twilight. Though that first culprit was sealed in Natsuhi's room, their child was also a culprit who lied when confirming their death. However, the only kids who can be a culprit are Battler, George, and Maria.
That's right, and we've proven that they couldn't have committed murder for the 5th, 6th, and 7th twilights.
In other words, this shows us that yet another culprit exists.
Yeah, it does! Interesting. There also happens to be a theory that makes sense. It would mean the 3rd culprit was also one of those who played dead. Might even be possible to have 4 or 5 culprits this way.
That's a fantastic theory. A game theory.
Oh, we can't both do that. It's kind of cringe when we both do it.
I'm not sure about that. At any rate, Goda, Kumasawa, and Nanjo couldn't have been killed if there were only 2 culprits. There can be no doubt of that.
This is getting complicated. Was it a group of 3 culprits? Or was it a pair working together and someone else on their own? Right, we can't forget the possibility that there are more than 3 culprits.
Of the 17 people who appear in the story, 9 have been confirmed innocent. Let's put Battler, George, and Maria to the side since they survived. The group of people who were supposedly dead but not proved innocent includes Eva, Hideyoshi, Rudolph, Kyrie, and Rosa, all victims in the first twilight.
Now the question is, which of those 5 victims in the dining hall were playing dead? We're close now. This is starting to get interesting. As for the 8th twilight, in the end, the layout's exactly the same.
Indeed. The narration says that George, Battler, and Maria could not have killed Jessica. The 3 survivors couldn't have done it.
The purple statements here sound like they should hold a lot of hints for us.
George's and Maria's purple statements are particularly interesting. If only we could trust them, they would be quite a powerful clue.
If George Aniki is innocent, then his purple statement about Maria being unable to kill anyone would be true, and Maria would be confirmed innocent. The same way, if Maria is innocent, her statement about George being unable to kill an adult would be true. In the end, that proves George Aniki innocent.
It would, but we cannot confirm that either of them is innocent.
If either George Aniki or Maria could prove the other was innocent, they would be innocent too. It's like a chicken and egg dilemma. Almost feels like a useful hint, but not quite. Pretty annoying.
Proving innocence for either of them probably won't be easy. At least we've gotten the suspects down to a small number. From here on out, there's probably nothing left to do except check each one to see if they could have been a culprit.
You're right. Feels like we're getting to the final stretch.
Looks like they've almost made it, doesn't it?
I feel like a fish on the chopping board.
A mackerel?
What?
Don't worry about it.
No, I use Windows. Got him! Got him so hard I knocked my mic over.
Oh, I need to readjust my mic stand, everyone. I got him so hard that everything fell apart around me. First, let's try checking theories with Maria as a culprit. If she's guilty, Rosa could have been playing dead. She could have carried out the crimes of the first and second twilights, then she gets locked in Aunt Nazi's room and Maria does the rest of the murders.
It was impossible for Maria to commit any of the murders in the guest house, so the most Maria could do was kill Shannon.
Which means a third culprit would be needed for the guest house murders.
The third one would have to be Eva, Hideyoshi, Rudolph, or Kyrie. That means we would need a fourth culprit, too.
Yeah, you're right. In order for one of those 4 adults to play dead, the child who checked them would have to be a culprit too. In other words, if Maria is a culprit, we'll need to have at least 4 culprits total.
If there are 4 culprits, then each one of them must kill at least one person.
The definition of culprit is one who murders.
In which case, things don't quite seem to add up.
The 4 culprits would then be 2 adults and 2 children. One adult is in charge of the murders on the first and second twilights. The other adult handles the murders from the guest house onwards. Yes, that creates a contradiction.
A culprit is defined as one who murders. It means every culprit must commit murder at least once.
Simply put, there are very few people that a child culprit could murder. The children could not have killed in the first and second twilights. They also can't commit murder after the first deaths in the guest house take place. The only one they can possibly commit is Shannon's murder on the fourth twilight. Does that follow, though? Because, suppose, for example, that only one person is faking their death in the first twilight, and they kill 5 people, and then they and their kid go together into Kraus and Natsuhi's room, each of them kills 1, and now the parent lets the kid out and locks themselves in.
Yeah, but they're not speaking perfectly logical. They're speaking on the basis of their theory still.
Okay.
Yeah, because remember, that they've got their theory they've advanced so far, and they're working off of that.
Okay.
A child culprit can only kill Shannon. The second child culprit couldn't kill anyone, so they couldn't be a culprit at all. It means there can only be one child culprit.
As soon as we pick Maria as a culprit, we need another adult culprit besides Rosa. However, it's impossible for there to be a second child culprit to lie about their parents' death. In other words, it's impossible for Maria to be a culprit.
Next, let's try out theories with George as a culprit. Only one child culprit can exist, so if George Aniki is a culprit, that means Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi are the only adults who could have been playing dead.
So, a 3-person group with 2 adults and 1 kid. I see. That sounds like it explained all the crimes so far, doesn't it?
But hold it, that's actually possible too.
Indeed. It's clearly shown that George cannot be a culprit. Pretty sharp. The kids can only kill Shannon on the fourth twilight. A trustworthy purple statement has already proven that George couldn't have been the culprit in Shannon's murder.
That's it. Just one tiny alibi that only works for Shannon-chan's murder. That's what proves George Aniki innocent for all the crimes.
So we need not suspect George, which means all of his purple statements can be relied upon. Once we're sure that George is innocent, that automatically makes Maria innocent too.
Yeah, confirms George Aniki's purple statement saying Maria couldn't kill anyone. Since she couldn't kill anyone, she can't be a culprit, so Maria is also confirmed innocent.
Since George and Maria are innocent, that also proves that their examinations of their parents' deaths were trustworthy.
I can't believe it. I can't believe this.
That's right, no one will mistakenly confirm a death, and people who are culprits can't lie, so the death of their parents have been confirmed, and those parents are also innocent.
You know that meme with persons doing a rake take? Person like getting on a skateboard and doing a whole cool trick down some stairways in order to land and do a rake take? Yeah, that's what I feel like here, where the rake take was getting it right, and there was a clear path to doing so, and we refused to do that and took the hardest possible chain of logic to result in these same final deductions. All of these final steps here are the ones we did.
We just took a harder path through the original.
The hardest possible path. Who's talking?
This is Beato.
We've gotten rid of almost everyone. The answer is already clear, is it not? Lamau. That's the whole hint. That's the whole hint.
First off, there are multiple culprits. It's confirmed. These crimes would be impossible for a single person.
To start, one of the adult culprits carried out the first Twilight, then played dead.
Since we know that all the servants with master keys were innocent, there was no way for the culprit to lock the door to the dining hall from the outside. So we know the one who locked it did so from inside the room.
And in order for them to play dead, they needed another culprit to lie when examining their death.
Genji-san is innocent, and the examinations of all 5 suspicious victims were performed by their own children, so the child of the first culprit is the second culprit.
And the child culprit couldn't carry out the crimes once they start occurring in the guest house. However, the adult culprit was sealed up in Natsuhi's room, so a second adult culprit was needed.
2 adults, 1 kid. That's what a culprit group looks like.
Okay. They're really like, you're going to make us...
It should be obvious by now. The name of the child culprit in this culprit group is clear.
Pretty much. All the kids have been proven innocent with one exception.
And the only corpse inspections that a child culprit could lie about were the inspections of that child's own parents. So the culprit group really was a family of 2 adults and 1 child.
Oh, murder is a family, huh? How sweet.
So, who are the 3 culprits? There's hardly any point in stretching this out further, is there? Well, let us do another hit. Can we stretch this out further? We can!
Oh, come on. What a messed up answer. Looks like I was the child culprit.
Even in my games, battler culprit theories were some of the most popular, weren't they?
Oh, it seems so. Why does everyone think I did it?
If you're a culprit, that automatically makes your parents culprits too. There's no need to worry anymore. We've already won.
There's no need for any more discussions or hints. Let's move ahead with the answer.
Is it over?
Well done. Seems the mystery of this level wasn't enough to beat those 2 after all. Wow.
Okay, but is there another hint? Can we continue stretching this out? Okay, we can't. Good.
Wow.
We fucking got there. We fucking got there.
We did get there. We did get there.
Oh, I feel good about that.
I can't believe that. That's fucking wild.
We beat Umineko.
I don't think that counts as beating Umineko, but like we passed the final exam at least. So I guess thanks for coming to this episode, and we'll see you next time when we enter in our final answer.
Hell yeah.
That's fucking rad.
Yeah.
That's so rad.
Yeah.
Ah!
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.